My name is Cecile Miller. I am 32 years old and work as an analyst at an investment bank in New York. From the outside, my life probably seems perfect. I have a stable job, a comfortable apartment, and a loving husband. However, life always has its hidden sides. I have a younger sister. Her name is Melinda. She is 3 years younger than me and currently studies psychology at a local university. Melinda has always been the golden child in our family. Even as children, the difference in how we were treated was obvious. No matter how well I performed, it was simply as expected. If Melinda achieved average results, it was something to be celebrated. These small but constant differences etched themselves deeply into my heart. One memory stands out most vividly: the day of my high school graduation. I graduated at the top of my class and gave a speech on stage. My parents were present at the ceremony, but they left shortly after, saying they had to attend Melinda's theater performance. They didn't even stay for my graduation party. And yet, strangely, I could never bring myself to resent Melinda. She was a victim of our twisted family dynamic, just like me. Our parents' excessive expectations and favoritism must have been a burden for her as well. She always had to play the role of the perfect daughter, which forced her to hide her true self. When it was time to choose a college, I deliberately selected one far away. Studying economics at New York University opened a new world for me. There, no one saw me as Melinda's older sister. I was simply Cecile, free to carve out my own life. During my 4 years at the university, I studied hard. I covered my tuition through scholarships and income from part-time jobs while maintaining excellent grades. I kept financial support from my parents to a minimum. This was because I didn't want to feel indebted to them. After graduation, I landed a job at an investment bank on Wall Street. There I met Sam Davis, who would later become my husband. He was an experienced analyst who mentored me during the new hire training. Sam was the most understanding person I had ever met. When I opened up about my complicated family dynamics, he listened attentively. His words, "We can't choose our family, but we can choose how we face them," were a great comfort to me. After 2 years of dating, we got married. The wedding was small but warm and heartfelt. My parents and Melinda attended, but they seemed somewhat uneasy. My mother, in particular, had a look on her face throughout the ceremony as if she wanted to say something. After the wedding, our lives were stable, and our careers were going well. During this time, Melinda was admitted to a local university, and I decided to allocate part of my income to help pay for her tuition. It was a gesture driven purely by love for my sister. I wanted her to focus on her studies without struggling as I had. But life has a way of betraying our goodwill, and that betrayal often arrives in the most unexpected ways. That fateful evening began with an ordinary dinner invitation. My mother had called, saying that Melinda had an important announcement and wanted the family to have dinner together. I received the call while sitting at my desk at work. Immersed in the analysis of quarterly financial reports, I didn't immediately pick up on the unusual excitement in my mother's voice. "Melinda has some wonderful news," she said, sounding as if she had just won the lottery. "Let's celebrate together tonight." I silently sighed as I checked my calendar. I had an important conference call scheduled with a key client that night, but I decided to reschedule it for the next day. Declining a family gathering would only give my mother more ammunition for her passive-aggressive behavior that could last for months. "All right, what time should I be there?" 7 o'clock. "Your father will be home early too." Her voice was brimming with excitement. "Sam will come too, right?" "Yes, I'll let him know." I wrapped up work early, went home, took a shower, and changed into a moderately formal outfit. Sam was already ready and sitting in the living room, watching the news. "Are you ready?" He smiled warmly at me. "Yes," I replied while giving myself a final check in the mirror. "I bet we'll be hearing about another one of Melinda's accomplishments." Sam stood up and placed a reassuring hand on my shoulder. "It's okay. I'm here for you." Those words, as always, comforted me. Sam had been my emotional support during every one of these family gatherings. We arrived at my parents' house right at 7 p.m. As soon as I opened the door, I could hear the sounds of laughter and conversation from inside. My parents and Melinda were already gathered in the living room. Melinda greeted us with her usual captivating smile. She had grown into a beautiful woman. Her long black hair, perfectly sculpted features, and radiant presence naturally drew people in. It wasn't hard to imagine her being popular at the university. "Cecile." Melinda sprang to her feet and hugged me tightly. The scent of expensive perfume lingered around her. "We've been waiting for you." My mother emerged from the kitchen, wearing a warm smile, although I couldn't tell whether that smile was meant for me or for Melinda. "Come on, everyone, have a seat." She gestured to the food laid out on the table. "Everything's ready." We followed her instructions and took our seats. My father, as usual, sat at the head of the table, barely acknowledging us with a small nod while keeping his eyes on the newspaper. Once the meal began, Melinda took a deep breath and made her announcement. "I'm pregnant." I froze, my fork suspended midair. Melinda was only in her second year of university. Sure, she was legally an adult, but wasn't she still too young? But my concerns didn't seem to matter, as my parents reacted with the kind of enthusiasm usually reserved for winning prestigious awards. "Congratulations," my mother exclaimed, almost shouting. "That's wonderful." Even my father, who rarely tore his eyes away from the newspaper, was now beaming with pride. A grandchild. What great news. I remained silent, observing the scene. There was a flicker of unease in Melinda's expression, but my parents were too caught up in their excitement to notice. "Who's the baby's father?" I asked quietly. Melinda blushed slightly and answered. "We're still in the middle of discussing things." Something about her answer felt off to me. Dinner continued as my parents went on and on about Melinda's pregnancy. They discussed future plans, preparations, and most of all, how amazing a mother Melinda would be. It was as if I didn't exist in the room. After dinner, I excused myself to the restroom. On my way back, I heard my parents' voices coming from the kitchen. Normally, I would have walked past, but something about my mother's tone made me stop. "Never tell Cecile about Melinda's mistake." My heart seemed to stop at that moment. There was no warmth in her voice, only a tense seriousness. "Exactly," my father added. "We can't let Cecile find out." Standing in the shadows of the hallway, I listened as the truth unraveled. Melinda had been involved with my husband, Sam, and my parents knew about it but chose to keep me in the dark. My world shattered completely in that instant. My body went cold as ice, and breathing became difficult. The walls felt like they were closing in on me, and my heart ached with the pain of betrayal. I managed to regain control of my body and return to the living room, telling everyone that I wasn't feeling well and needed to go home. Sam looked concerned, but I couldn't meet his eyes. In the car ride home, I remained silent. Sam tried to speak to me several times, but I kept my gaze fixed on the window, offering only brief responses. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay there staring at Sam as he slept beside me, overwhelmed by the realization that everything I had built in my life was resting on a cruel lie. But by the time dawn broke, one thing had become clear in my mind. I had to uncover the full truth and confront this betrayal. The next morning, I woke up early. The clock showed 5 a.m. I quietly slipped out of bed and made my way to the living room. As the first light of day streamed in, I opened my laptop. I searched the keywords, "top private investigation agencies in New York," and within moments, dozens of results appeared. I narrowed it down to 3 highly rated firms and sent inquiry emails to each. The first response arrived shortly after 9 a.m. It was from Wagner Investigations. The email was concise and professional, offering a free initial consultation. I immediately scheduled an appointment. That afternoon, I left work early under the pretense of a meeting with a client and headed to an office building in the heart of Manhattan. Taking the elevator to the 12th floor, I found a door with a discreet sign that read, "Wagner Investigations." Brad Wagner was slightly different from what I had imagined. He didn't resemble the rugged detectives you see in TV dramas. Instead, he had the air of a university professor. A gentleman in his mid-50s. "Ms. Cecile, could you explain the situation in detail?" He started with a polite tone. I explained everything, from the conversation I overheard last night to the sense of unease and the certainty that followed. As I spoke, Brad occasionally jotted down notes, listening with a serious expression. "So, your request can be broken down into two main objectives," he said, summarizing once I had finished. "1, collecting evidence of your husband's relationship with your sister, and 2, gathering proof of your parents' cover-up." "Yes, that's correct," I replied. "This is a delicate case," he continued, carefully choosing his words. "Considering the fact that it involves family, we'll need to be extremely cautious in how we collect the evidence. How much will it cost?" "The base fee is around $1,500. The total will depend on the number of investigation days. Additional charges may apply based on the situation." Hearing the amount, I hesitated for a moment. It wasn't a small expense. But I decided it was a necessary investment to uncover the truth. "Please proceed." After signing the contract, Brad explained the investigation plan in detail. He mentioned combining various methods, such as photo surveillance, monitoring electronic devices, and conducting interviews. From that day, my double life began. On the surface, I lived my life as a wife who knew nothing, while secretly awaiting updates from the detective. The first report arrived 5 days after the investigation began. Attached to the email were photos of Sam and Melinda meeting at a cafe near her university. Their expressions were intimate, making it obvious they were more than just in-laws. Evidence continued to pour in. Messages exchanged between the two, security footage showing them entering and leaving a hotel, and the most decisive piece, a testimony from Melinda's friend. Melinda talked to me several times about her relationship with Sam, her friend said in the recorded testimony. She seemed confused at first, but eventually she got deeply involved. But the most shocking discovery was the evidence of my parents' involvement. Messages exchanged between them and Melinda detailed plans to conceal the affair from me. And the motive behind it all became clear. My financial support for Melinda's university education had become a crucial source of financial relief for my parents. They feared that once the truth came out, I would cut off that support. To them, I was nothing more than a wallet. As the evidence continued to pile up, an unexpected opportunity presented itself. A party was planned to celebrate Melinda's pregnancy. When my mother told me over the phone, the plan had already begun forming in my mind. "We want it to be a lovely party," she said, her voice full of excitement. "Melinda's friends will be there too, and of course I have a few tasks I'd love your help with." "Of course," I replied calmly. "I'm happy to help in any way I can." There was no lie in my words. I truly intended to help, just not in the way my mother expected. Preparations for the party progressed smoothly. The venue was my parents' house, scheduled for Saturday at 2 p.m. Around 30 guests, including family, relatives, and Melinda's close friends, were invited. My mother had meticulously planned every detail. On the surface, I played the role of the devoted older sister, helping with the preparations. I assisted in choosing decorations, organizing the catering, and sending out invitations. I made sure to meet my mother's expectations at every turn. All the while, more evidence continued to arrive from the detective. The most intriguing were the text messages exchanged between Melinda and my parents. They had been coordinating their strategy regarding me. "We can't let Cecile find out." One of my mother's messages to Melinda read, "She's paying for your tuition. If she stops because of this, we'll be in big trouble. Reading that message erased any lingering doubt within me. This wasn't just betrayal. It was premeditated exploitation. On the day of the party, I arrived at my parents' house early. I wore a warm smile and efficiently helped with the final preparations, playing the role of the perfect hostess. "Cecile, thank you so much," my mother said, wrapping an arm around my shoulder with satisfaction. "I don't know what I'd do without you." But her words no longer warmed my heart as they once did. Instead, I was filled with cold, unwavering determination. The party started at 2 p.m., as planned. Guests began arriving one after another, and soon the living room was filled with laughter and cheerful conversations. Melinda, glowing with what appeared to be maternal bliss, graciously accepted all the congratulations and well wishes. As the time for presenting gifts approached, I quietly slipped upstairs and retrieved the materials I had prepared. The evidence was meticulously organized: photographs, message records, and proof of my parents' cover-up. All of it was neatly packaged inside a beautifully wrapped box. "It's time for presents," my mother called out cheerfully. "Melinda, everyone has chosen something special for you." One by one, gifts were unwrapped amid excited reactions. Baby clothes, toys, parenting books. Each gift was thoughtful and filled with love. Finally, it was my turn. "This is my gift to you, Melinda," I said. I spoke in a calm voice. "I prepared this with special meaning." Melinda nodded eagerly, her excitement evident. But the moment she opened the box, her face froze. Her hands began to tremble as soon as she saw the first photo inside. The colored photo clearly showed her and Sam in an intimate embrace. A few of the guests began noticing Melinda's sudden change. "Melinda, what's wrong?" my mother asked with concern. But her voice, too, was soon silenced. The contents of the photos were gradually becoming visible to those around us. "This is my special gift to you," I continued, my voice steady. "All the evidence gathered by the private investigation agency showing your relationship with Sam and—" I paused, shifting my gaze toward my parents. Their faces had already gone pale, and the evidence of Mom and Dad's efforts to cover it up. The room fell into a silence so heavy it was as if the air had frozen. The only sound was Melinda's soft sobbing. "Cecile, please, let me explain," she said, her voice shaking. "Explain," I replied, keeping my emotions in check. "With the mountain of evidence I've collected over 2 weeks, what explanation could you possibly offer?" Sam stood rigid, like a statue. His face was drained of color, and I could see his lips trembling slightly. "This is a misunderstanding." My father suddenly spoke, his voice raised. "Cecile, calm down. We shouldn't be airing family matters in front of so many people." "Family matters." I cut him off, raising my voice for the first time. "Who do you think has been paying for Melinda's education?" "Me. I've been covering her expenses ever since I got my job, and after betraying me, you're still calling this a family matter?" My mother tried to intervene, but I held up my hand to stop her. "That's enough. Look at this." I held up my phone, showing them the messages exchanged between them and Melinda. "Cecile must never find out. She's the one paying for your tuition. If she stops because of this, we'll be in serious trouble." I read my mother's message out loud, and a wave of murmurs rippled through the room. Melinda's friends exchanged uneasy glances, their confusion clear. "I was just a wallet to you," I said, my voice a mixture of sadness and anger. "A convenient sister, who kept paying for her younger sibling's education, and that same sister's husband was." And then it happened. Suddenly, chaos erupted. "You're disgusting." Melinda's boyfriend, consumed with rage, shouted and charged toward Sam. Despite being involved with Sam, Melinda had also been dating a male classmate. "You seduced Melinda, and now you're pretending like nothing happened? Say something." Just as Sam opened his mouth to respond, The boyfriend's fist connected with his face. Sam staggered backward and collapsed onto the table. The impact set off a chain reaction. The room erupted into complete chaos. This bastard. Sam got up and lunged at the boyfriend, grabbing hold of him. Melinda collapsed into tears while my parents frantically tried to regain control of the situation, but it was already too late. The guests were slowly piecing the truth together, their voices filled with anger and disbelief. How could this happen? I can't believe it. How could you do such a thing? I stood silently in the middle of the chaos. Was this the outcome I had wanted? A whirlwind of complex emotions churned inside me. Melinda continued sobbing, leaning into my parents for support. Her makeup was smeared with tears, and her carefully styled hair was now a mess. The radiant image of a celebrated mother-to-be was nowhere to be seen. Sam, with blood dripping from his nose, tried to get back on his feet. But he couldn't move under the weight of the cold, judgmental stares surrounding him. "Cecile." My mother called out to me in a trembling voice. "Please, no more." But I had already turned my back. As I walked toward the front door, I delivered my final words. "Melinda's tuition support ends today. I'll start the divorce process with Sam tomorrow, and—" I paused, briefly looking back. "Don't ever contact me again." I stepped outside, where the evening sky was beautifully painted in shades of orange and pink. It was as if the chaos from the past few hours had been nothing but a lie. But the noise still echoing from the house confirmed that this was all too real. I got into my car and exhaled deeply before starting the engine. It was over. No! This was the beginning. Gripping the steering wheel tightly, I reminded myself of that. In the back seat lay copies of the evidence. Photographs, message logs, and documentation gathered through the detective's investigation. I had spent over $1,500 on the investigation, a steep cost, but one I deemed necessary to uncover the truth. As I pulled out of the driveway, I glanced in the rearview mirror, watching my parents' house fade into the distance. The house I had lived in for over 20 years now felt like a stranger's home. There was no place for me there anymore. As the street lights began to flicker on one by one, I took my first step toward a new life. A week had passed since the party. At that time, my phone was filled with dozens of missed calls and unread messages, but I hadn't responded to a single one. Instead, I had spent the week focusing on rebuilding my life. The first thing I did was schedule a meeting with my lawyer. With the overwhelming evidence I had, the divorce proceedings were expected to go smoothly. Even Sam's response came surprisingly quickly, agreeing to the divorce without much resistance. He likely wanted to avoid further scandal. As for asset division, it will be split evenly by default, the lawyer explained. However, considering the evidence you've gathered, there's room for negotiation on more favorable terms. At work, I submitted a transfer request. Having worked in the same department as Sam, continuing there was no longer an option. Fortunately, a position had opened in the London branch's intermediary team, a position they had offered me before. "Cecile, you're welcome anytime," said the London HR director with a warm smile over the video call. "We're well aware of your accomplishments." I also wasted no time addressing my living situation. The luxury apartment in Manhattan was filled with memories of Sam. Instead, I found a loft in Brooklyn, a renovated space in an old factory. It had wide open spaces, large windows, and most importantly, the perfect atmosphere for a fresh start. But the most significant change was the one happening within me. The dependence and emotional attachment I had carried toward my family for years were slowly unraveling, like a heavy chain being lifted. For about 2 weeks, my parents persisted in trying to reach me. Emails, phone calls, even unexpected visits to my home. But I didn't respond to any of them. Melinda sent me several apology messages, but I deleted them without reading. "Cecile, please, listen to us." My mother pleaded in a desperate voicemail. We're family, can't we? But even those words failed to move me. The word family had never sounded so hollow. I immersed myself in work, focusing on my new beginning, when an unexpected visitor showed up one day. It was Melinda's best friend, Carol. She lived nearby and had known both Melinda and me since we were children. Could you spare a moment to talk? Carol was waiting for me in the office lobby. We moved to a nearby cafe, and I agreed to hear her out. Melinda has dropped out of college, Carol said quietly. She's moved back into your parents' house and started working part-time. I silently stirred my coffee. She really regrets everything, Carol continued. But I support your decision. Sometimes, the truth can only be revealed in such a way. Carol's words unexpectedly resonated deeply within me. She was one of the few people who could see the situation from an entirely objective perspective. Thank you, I replied briefly. But I'm not going back. There was no hesitation in my voice. 2 years have passed since then. Living in London has brought countless changes into my life. A new environment, new people, and most importantly, a new version of myself. Work has been more fulfilling than I could have imagined. Collaborating with colleagues from diverse cultural backgrounds has expanded both my skills and my worldview. My career progressed quickly, and I am now the head of my department, leading major projects. My relationship with my parents and Melinda remains severed. Occasionally, I hear updates about them through mutual acquaintances, but it feels like listening to stories about strangers. Melinda never returned to college. She now works at a local supermarket and is raising her child as a single mother. My parents are busy helping her with childcare. The divorce from Sam took a year to finalize, but it's all settled now. I heard he left the company and relocated to the West Coast. Over these past 2 years, I've lost many things, but I've gained something far more valuable: self-trust, the courage to make decisions, and most importantly, the freedom to choose my own path in life. This is my new life. And this story is not an ending but a new beginning. Sometimes, life's greatest challenges come from those closest to us. But beyond those challenges lies a new light, waiting to be discovered. I now know that firsthand,